Wabash, the gentleman's rule. You gotta believe in that stuff. Wabash always fight.
Good afternoon. On a rainy Wednesday afternoon, it's time to talk to the head football coach of the Wabash College program, Don Morel, on the Don Morel Show. Coach, good afternoon. We've got a little bit of the remnants of Hurricane Irma behind us, moved us to the area underneath the stadium, but the good news is when we were last in this stadium for an event, it was Saturday's victory over Albion, a 36-25 or 35-26 victory over the Britons. Let's talk a little bit about that game, and we'll look at some highlights here in just a minute. But immediately what jumps out was the effectiveness of your running game on Saturday. 72 carries, over 300 yards, 321 yards for the team, and 5 rushing touchdowns. What allowed that really to develop?
Clearly, number one, the offensive line. That group's been together a while. They're a big physical group, and that's what we'd like to do the rest of the year is run the ball first, kind of put our hat on that. Clearly, we have a few really good running backs, maybe several, I think, and that's going to be the strength of our offensive football team.
We'll take a look at those running backs with this highlight package, but one of the guys you lost right out of the chute, first play from scrimmage, Isaac Avant. Will he be available to you this week when you get set for Kenyon?
We think so. We only want him to go if he's 100%, but what a great way to start the year on the first play, losing your starting running back. Made me feel terrific.
Well, and also part of your kick return game as he was back along with Anthony McGinnis to field that first kickoff return. Sure. So limited action for Isaac, but the rest of your running back core picked up the work. Bobby Bloom had a touchdown for Wabash. Tyler Downing got in, and what a day for Ike James, the North Coast Athletic Conference Offensive Player of the Week for week number 1, as we take a look at some of the highlights from the Albion, the win over Albion. Ike with 43 carries, 238 yards, 3 touchdowns. Fantastic debut for the young man.
What a way to start your career at Wabash College. We didn't intend to give him the ball 43 times. It was going to be 22 for Avant and 22 for Ike, but certainly we feel like the backup guys too aren't backups. Bloom and Tyler Downing are outstanding players also.
Well, you talked about the offensive line blocking, but you also got great blocking from tight ends Dylan Burrish and from your fullback / H-back Matt Panola. Really a great job by your offense just executing that portion of the game.
It was, and it's an unselfish group. A couple other guys. Ivan Martinez is another tight end we use. Nate Melke is another tight end we use. So we feel unique in the ability to put 3 tight ends on the field if we have to. Matt Panola, incredibly unselfish football player, moving to fullback. And he didn't just move. He is an outstanding player at a position most teams don't even have anymore.
Defensively, I know you weren't totally satisfied with the containment on the outside, and we saw that. We saw a couple of times during the game. Bishop Rhodes got a couple of sacks, but there were times where the quarterback was able to escape that containment. We talked about this Monday when you and I chatted. Talk about what you did with this team during the bye week, because you have had 2 weeks before you get set for this game against Kenyon on Saturday that we'll talk about in just a minute. But it gave you an opportunity to really approach things a little differently from your normal week-to-week routine.
I like the last couple of years we've had a bye after the first game. I actually like it. You just get to fix all the mistakes, and there are many for any football team week 1. So I think we've corrected that. We have moved ahead with some players in their positions. I think there's some young guys that weren't ready to play week 1. You're going to see more of them week 2. And we've just become a more efficient football team in the last 10 days.
You do get set for Kenyon this weekend. Let's talk about the Lords coming in here. Kenyon 0-2 on the season, 0-1, tough loss to Oberlin last weekend, a game that they were only able to accumulate 63 total rushing yards. It's a little bit of a young football team. They've got a sophomore quarterback, sophomore and freshman at the running back positions, but they have senior wide receivers, and that includes Ian Bell, who has over half of their catches for the season. So he's clearly been a big leader on offense. What are your expectations from Kenyon on offense coming in here Saturday?
We got a very good quarterback. He was, I believe, the second team all-conference player last year as a freshman. He's a good player. It's a bit of a mystery to us because we think Kenyon is really well coached year in and year out. It may be their slow start, may be a product of having the young guys play or whatnot, but 2 years ago I know it was 7-0 at halftime, and our team 2 years ago won 12 games, so we're not taking this lightly by any measure.
I know you've mentioned how much respect you have for their entire coaching staff, and that starts at the top with Chris Monfiletto, but how well that team is coached and how well they're prepared each week.
They are, and I don't know what they're going to have cooked up for us defensively, but they're going to have something we've never seen before. They do every year. They're efficient on offense. They try to hog the ball like we do. So it'll be interesting to see Saturday what we're faced with.
Let's talk a little bit about that time of possession stat, because that was something your team absolutely dominated against Albion. With the 72 rushing attempts, easy to take control of that clock, and that allows your defense to be fresh when it goes out on the field, and that may be really key in this conference because you will face a lot of quarterbacks and teams that can provide a quick strike running attack and a passing attack, and you don't want your defense out on the field a lot during the season.
We don't. Albion quarterback was a very talented football player. He was a Division II football player last year that transferred to Albion, and it was a real test. Actually, I think our defense did a good job of containing a guy that was much faster than anybody we had on the field, but we're going to be challenged by a number of teams with quarterbacks that can run. Time of possession is important to us also. We want to win that category.
Another category that you really excelled at Saturday, and it was a category that you really did well in last year as well. Fourth down conversions. You went for it 5 times last week. You converted your first 4. The only one you didn't convert was in the final offensive drive of the game, when you then turned the ball over on downs to Albion with 2 minutes left, and were able to get the stop with the Jeff Houston interception on the final attempt by Albion. Last year, you had a good success rate, 70% on fourth downs. You know, off to another great start this year. Is that something that you and the team are really confident that when the time comes to try and go for it on fourth, you really feel like you've got the capability and the personnel to make those conversions?
One big advantage we have clearly is the offensive line and the skill at running back. And then statistically, it's not a bad bet. It really is not. And there's more written about going for it on fourth down. So I am somewhat of a believer in it. And it hasn't really bitten us back yet. So we're going to continue to treat fourth down as an offensive down.
Defensively preparing for Kenyon, one area that's kind of bitten them early in the season is the turnover bug. 6 interceptions this year. They've also lost a fumble. They're -5 overall in turnover margin. Is that something that you've talked to the defense about this week, that they've got an opportunity to really try and force some things and get some positive results on defense and get the ball back in the hands of your offense?
As we look at our team last year, we made a giant jump in turnovers between week 1 and week 2. I think week 1 you're just hoping to get lined up correctly and not prevent a disaster from happening. So I see us being much more aggressive. Jeff Ramsey does a great job. Jeff Franklin, David Denham, our defensive staff, and I know they want the turnover.
We talk about it, it's one of the great football cliches, but it's a cliche because it's really true. Most improvement for a football team comes between game 1 and game 2, because you've had an opportunity to see yourself on the field, analyze what you've done, and make improvements in those foundational areas. What are the areas you feel Wabash needs to improve coming into this game against Kenyon?
Well, first, I'd say I think every team improves between week 1 and week 2. What you don't want to have happen is from week 1 to week 2 you improve this much when you really could have improved this much. So we need to make sure that we have put our best foot forward in improving in all areas. Clearly we need to throw the ball better, and that's been an emphasis for us. It wasn't in game one. The only goal in game one was to win it. Now we need to improve offensively in throwing the ball, certainly in spreading it around to a number of our different weapons. And then defensively, I think we got beat deep on a couple plays. We don't want that to happen anymore. So just it's a bunch of little things, but they all add up to be important.
We talked about the Kenyon turnovers. I know one thing you were a little disappointed with Saturday as well was the turnover number for Wabash with an interception and a lost fumble. You had two turnovers Saturday. You had only 5 last season, and you and I talked really only 4 through 9 games and basically almost 55 minutes of football till a late turnover in the Monon Bell game.
Right.
How do you try and prevent those turnovers? What do you have to do as a player, as a coach, as a team to try and eliminate those type of mistakes?
I think Craig Kanaki, our offensive coordinator, has made a great point of it this week. It's important. And there are some things we do not do at Wabash College, and in Wabash College football, we don't turn the ball over. So hopefully we've put the kibosh on that, but we'll see.
Kickoff is at 1 o'clock on Saturday here at Byron P. Hallett Little Giant Stadium. We'll be out on the football field as opposed to underneath the stadium. I don't think we could get up the entire Wabash football team underneath the stadium with the roster size we have this year. But we'll be out on the football field. Kickoff is at 1 o'clock. Ticket information is on the Wabash College Sports website at sports.wabash.edu. You can, of course, watch the game. Jim Amadon, Steve Hoffman, Josh Mundell will have all the action for you, along with our fine crew at Wabash Live, and that pregame show will begin about 12:30 with this very Don Morel show. And Coach, be remiss before we left if we didn't offer our condolences on the passing of your father-in-law, Jack Wentworth, a longtime dean down at the down at Indiana University. Your wife Barbie's father. Our condolences to you and the entire Morel family on the loss.
Everybody's been great.
This has been the Don Morel Show, your chance to hear the thoughts and comments of the head football coach of the Little Giant program. We'll talk to you next week.
Wabash, the gentleman's rule. You gotta believe in that stuff. Wabash always fight.